Hello, inspiring educators. Adele Bates, Behaviour and Education Specialist here, and welcome to the third part of this very short video series on looking at anxious teachers, behaviour in the classroom, and 2020. So if this is the first video that you've seen of mine, then let me introduce myself. I have had juice poured on my head, I've been whacked by a skateboard, and I've taught a Year 7 pupil how to read their very first word. I am a behaviour and education specialist, and I support school leaders, teachers, teaching assistants, homeschooling parents and carers to work with their young people and pupils who have behavioural needs, or SEMH, social, emotional, mental health needs. And I help them to help the young people thrive in their education so that they can too be a part of positive social change. I'm the forthcoming author of Miss I Don't Give a Shit, due out next year with Sage Publications, and I am a TEDx speaker 2020, which means there's a slight little delay for obvious reasons. So to recap the previous two videos, if you weren't around, I totally recommend you go back and have a look. But in the first one, I gave you a big permission slip to be a human in these times, and how in fact that can help you be a better teacher and positively influence the behaviour in your classroom. In the second video, we looked at how powerful actually a teacher can be in the classroom for setting the emotional safety and tone within the micro community of a classroom, and again how that can affect the behaviour of the young people, a teacher's reaction to it, and I gave a few scenarios that will be useful tips for some of you. And in this third video we're looking at, I'm starting to introduce three very important topics to me, and that's because next week I'm going to be running a masterclass online course. It begins with a free introductory webinar where you can join me live. I love doing these are so much fun because we have a chance to connect in the community of other inspiring educators and ask all those questions and share our woes and refine that motivation for us to be being the teachers we want to be, making a difference in these slightly more turbulent times. But I'll tell you more about the details about that in a second. But in this video, what we're really looking at is, okay, so you've set yourself up in your classroom. You're actually feeling okay with being there. You have been able to regulate your own anxiety a bit more. You've been able to respond more usefully to any challenging behaviour that is coming up for you. But what if it's still not working? And what if there's actually a lot more, I'm going to use the word work, that needs to be done here. And I'm going to introduce very briefly in this video three topics that we're going to be looking at in much more depth, both in the masterclass online course and the free introductory webinar on Tuesday. So we start with building relationships. And I know this is a teaching standard, and I know that this term is thrown about a lot in education, and rightly so. But what I really like to get to in the bottom of my trainings is, how do we actually do that? Okay, yes, we must all build positive relationships, but actually we've got a massive workload, loads of marking, there's 34 in your class, and you can't quite remember all of their names all the time. Yeah, so the reason why this is so important for behaviour and fostering a positive culture of behaviour is because if we've got young people who through 2020 are feeling anxious, or feeling unsafe, or feeling scared, or perhaps going through very challenging things at home, then the more safe and positive they feel with you as a safe adult in that classroom, guess what? The more likely they are to take risks. So, for example, I work a lot with teenagers in secondary schools, and if I've got a young person who, let's say, is 16, but has a reading age of 8, and I ask her to read in front of the entire class, I need to first of all make sure that she's going to trust me, because that's a really scary thing to ask her to do. And you can obviously translate this for your setting, the actual task, but the framework is the same. if whenever we ask our young people to do something that they find challenging academically, they need to be able to trust us, and we need to have developed a relationship. So that is the first point, and that is something I'm going to go into a lot next week of how we actually do that. The second piece is around inclusion and belonging in your classroom. So again, I'm thinking about this pupil who's been asked to take a risk academically somewhere in her work in my classroom. But if she doesn't feel like she's in a community that will support that, she's definitely not going to do it. And we've all seen this where we know a pupil of ours has the capacity and ability to do something, but because their friends are watching, they shrink away. Or because they're not feeling included within our school community. There hasn't just been a global pandemic going on this year, there's been a lot of unrest around social justice and race. How is that affecting our brown and black pupils differently to our white pupils? How do we as educators ensure that all of our pupils are included in those spaces? So that's the second area that we're going to be going into much more detail, both from a behavioural point of view in terms of how do we include with behaviour, and also much wider perspectives looking at some of those bigger issues around race, around disability, around ethnicity, around sexual orientation and gender identity, things that are big society issues that affect your classroom and therefore affect the behaviour and learning progress of your young people. And then the final bit, this is one of my favourites, is what I often call see the child, not the behaviour, or understanding the needs behind the behaviour. Because have you ever had that thing where you've skipped breakfast, and you usually eat breakfast, right? And so you're a bit more snappy towards your housemate, your partner, the lollipop woman, whatever, right? It makes you a bit more snappy. Now, if they took that on surface value, then you're a grumpy so-and-so and lots of reasons not to talk to you. But if we unpick that, just for you and your experience, well, actually, you didn't eat breakfast. There's like a really practical, biological unmet need going on here. And this is the final piece that I find absolutely integral for fostering positive behaviour in my classroom. We need to be detectives. We need to get curious. We need to find out what that exploded pen really is telling us. We need to find out what that back chatting is really telling us, because behaviour really is a communication of an unmet need. And the tricky piece in this, I'll be going into this in much more detail next week, but the tricky piece of this is that it might be that your young person can't articulate it in that way. They might not be able to say, I have an unmet need and therefore I am shoving Peter next to me. Like, they don't do that, right? They're humans. I don't do that either. When I'm snapping at my fiance and she looks at me with despair, I'm not saying, I haven't eaten breakfast and therefore I am snapping at you. That we're human. Doesn't work like that. But as educators, I feel it's our jobs to be curious, to be detectives, to find out what is going on here. Where is the unmet need? Because guess what? If we can address the unmet need, then the behaviour becomes irrelevant. If you give me breakfast, I'm less likely to be snappy. So these are the three big areas I am excited to open and explore with you. So if you want to come on along and join us, the free introductory webinar is on Tuesday, the 24th of November, and that's at 5:30 p.m. UK time. I've done a few of these live webinars now. I absolutely love them, despite the technical terrors. Like, even just thinking about it, I'm having technical terrors completely. But I love being there with you live if you can make it, because then we can connect. We have a community of inspiring educators who want to be making this difference with our young people in 2020, who want to be connecting and sharing, okay, what is working for you? What isn't working for you? Oh, I hadn't thought about that, haven't tried that for ages. That is the joy of us coming together live as a community. If you can't make it live, there is a recording as well, so please don't feel like you're going to miss out on that. And then this webinar is just the very first introduction to a week-long masterclass course, which will be happening in the first week of December. There are 3 main parts that are recorded that are self-study, and again we're going to have a few live sessions as well, so I'll be telling you more about that next week. But if you want to start along this journey with us, then there should be some kind of sign up thing somewhere. Sign up for the introduction of the whole course and come and connect with other inspiring educators like yourselves. I really look forward to virtually meeting you.